Hello, hello, hello. It is me, your true heel phenom SP3, back once again with the princess of all the true heels, Miss Krssi Luv. And this is our Dark
Hello.
Side of the Ring episode. They calling it episode 4, but we call it episode 3 because they're calling it episode 4 because the Benoit is considered two different
Two.
episodes. So let's guess it's episode 4. Sorry about that, guys. But episode 4,
Whatever.
the Brawl for All, talking about
Boo.
WWE's infamous Fight Man tournament from 1998. Krssi Luv, I know at the end of our Life and Crimes of New Jack episode, you said you weren't that familiar with Brawl for All, so tell me what you learned, tell me what you liked about the episode and what you didn't like.
Once I watched it, I was like, "Oh, I remember this trash." I remember the whole Butterbean foolishness, but I didn't connect the two together or whatever. So now that they put everything together, and then that he, what's his name, had a vendetta against Bradshaw, it was just like, really, a whole. You made this whole thing because he talked too much. I'm on Jim Cornette's side now.
This was one of the few times in my life where I 100% agreed with Jim Cornette. And Jim
Right.
Cornette was the MVP of this episode with some of
Absolutely.
his rants. I just want to choke you! I just want to choke you! And your eyes pop out of your head! like,
Absolutely. I
like,
Jim Cornette is an asshole himself, but he's no genius or like, well, he's a genius, but not in that point where he's like just was over him pretty much.
yeah. Yeah, I mean Jim Cornette, he's not one that has 100% good ideas himself, but the fact of the matter is he did see that this was a bad idea from the jump point, and like you said, like the fact that this whole thing comes to transpire because Bradshaw is talking so much trash backstage, and Vince Russo wants to shut up Bradshaw, so he suggests to Vince McMahon, why not just have like a 16-man tournament? He was like, everything's becoming so real now. It's becoming so no, it's not becoming so real.
It
Like,
was real
yeah,
from the get-go.
you are turning up the volume of certain people's real personalities and personas and turning them up to 10, but you're not telling them to go out there and shoot on each other and have an actual fight. So they
And
kind
these
of
are like actual people that didn't know how to do these things, and yet you didn't understand. Like even when they saw Jim Ross, he was like, I don't even know if it's a takedown. I didn't even know what to call it. Like no one, there was no rules.
yeah. It was just so confusing from the jump point, but I think we should do like we do with the other episodes and kind of talk about the timeline because at the beginning it kind of seemed like they were telling the Vince Russo story when it comes to Vince Russo and the WWF at the time or WWE, how he
He's the
was
writer for the magazine.
writer and editor for WWF Magazine, and Vince McMahon around 1995, 1996 just has like a board meeting. He has all his minions there: Bruce Pritchard, Jim Cornette, Pat
He said all
Patterson.
the old guys.
Yeah, all the old guys, all the old traditionalists. Jim Ross is there as well, and he tells them that the TV product has to be more like the Raw magazine, which Vince Russo is editing at the time. So
And
ever
making
since
it
then,
as like a Jerry Springer show.
yes. Ever since then, Vince Russo became the one of the people involved in the writing team for writing the show for WWE. I feel like it was a little bit of a one-sided portrayal because they did not like really talk about why Vince Russo kind of earned his spot up until 1998 to for Vince McMahon to even say, you know what, that's a great idea. Let me shake your hand. Like they didn't talk about all the stuff and work he did with like Mick Foley, Triple H, guys behind the scenes and the angles and stuff that he produced. Let me stop.
No,
and
sorry.
and it's okay. And the angles and stuff that he was producing that time from 1996, 1997, which gave him the opportunity for Vince McMahon to say, yes, sure, 16 guys go out there and potentially get hurt and injured of something that we can't plan in advance. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but after that, after they kind of told you like the introduction, vendetta against Bradshaw and why he even suggested it, they moved into the Dr. Death Steve Williams. So
Right.
what was your thoughts on seeing and learning more about Dr. Death Steve Williams and the whole point of him kind of being the guy that they
was
thought
gonna
would
put
win the
over.
whole.
Yep. Yep. Again, going back, forgetting who these people were actually there, and I was like, "Dag, we was really liking some of these guys." It was like, "Wait, who are these people again?" But other than that, just going back and like looking to see like this whole tournament, I was like, "Oh God, this is what we have to watch right now." Like, no one really paid attention, like they said in the whole documentary as well. Like, no one really cared about the whole thing.
No, as a fan at that time, I didn't really care for it. It was a whole bunch of
Right.
guys who were like in the middle of the card or in the undercard that you didn't really care
They were
for.
fillers. It was filler for the show for
Yeah,
3 hours. Sure.
and in a lot of ways, like the fact that it was about shutting Bradshaw up. When you go into it, like at that time in 1998, honestly, Bradshaw was one of the favorites. He was one of the more known guys that were known at the time. Him and Godfather, like they said, like Godfather was a part of the nation, so he kind of had that portrayal. Steve Blackman was a guy that had that legitimate background, so you kind of thought of him as a favorite. And then Dr. Death, Steve Williams being like the All-American in wrestling and stuff. So those were like the four main favorites. But no one saw Bart Gunn coming from. That's why I did like the whole point with Bruce Pritchard on Something to Wrestle With. He talks about how Terry Funk was the only guy that came up to him and told him that he was like, I don't know, this is a bad idea, Bruce. I think this is a horrible idea. And they're all gonna lose to the old cowboy. The old cowboy's got all them scars, and he'll just beat the hell out of all of them. So he's the only one that thought that Bart Gunn would win the whole thing. So I did like that they added the Something to Wrestle With, because that did, if you don't know, all the details, all the behind the scenes stuff about what happened during the Brawl for All and how that came to fruition, definitely listen to Something to Wrestle With Bruce Pritchard, because he goes more into detail of what they were not able to cover in the 1 hour time that they were able to this story. I do like the fact that they did highlight Bart Gunn, because at the end of it, it's kind of like a sad story about Bart Gunn kind of was this underdog triumph in the Brawl for All, and WWE just had no plans for him whatsoever, because he wasn't the guy pegged out to win a real fight thing. It was if it was real, it didn't matter who. You should have just had a plan for whoever won the tournament, but they didn't.
Did he ever get the money?
Yeah. He said he got the money. Bruce Pritchard also said that.
The golden gloves.
Yes, he got the golden gloves. He got the money as well. They did like that. They did show that whole segment on Raw with the Jim Ross where he gave him the gloves and gave him the money. So that was a little nice point of it. But it's kind of sad because the fact that they some people in the behind the scenes rumors were that the guy that won Brawl for All would be able to go up and fight with Stone Cold Steve Austin at the time, who was the top draw. That's one of the main reasons why Bart Gunn decides to get in the tournament. So the fact that they're kind of promising these things behind the scenes and it doesn't come through, typical WWE for you. Typical Vince.
Just let the poor guy just go out and just hang him there, just leave him there.
Yeah, Jim Ross they did kind of do like how Jim Ross kind of sometimes when he was in the office, he kind of had to be that bad guy, kind of going up to Bart Gunn and saying like,
listen, guy, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, we didn't think you could take down Dr. Death. We thought Dr. Death, like he even tried to tell them, he was like, I think you should wait to put me against Dr. Death until the finals, because he wasn't even supposed to verse him when the bracket came out. Like he wasn't even in the same bracket as him, but they wanted to push that. They thought Dr. Death could take him down. He didn't. He actually tore his, I think they said his ACL in the fight, and then got knocked out, and his reputation was killed. His WWE career was killed, and pretty much
really had a career, to be honest.
I mean, he did have a really good career. I mean, he was in WCW and NWA back in the late 80s.
Right.
Well, not in WWE. No. Correct. This was his introduction into WWE, and they put him in a shoot fight tournament. Like, why? If you wanted him to be a top star, I don't understand why. And when one guy is that confident that he thinks that he's gonna knock him out, that he tells you he's gonna knock him out, and he says, "I will work with you because I don't want to get the heat for this. maybe you should have listened, Bruce Pritchard. Maybe you should have listened, Vince McMahon.
They didn't listen to him because they didn't think, oh, he's just talking. Like he not gonna do nothing. He's just regular. Boy, did he prove them wrong?
He's gonna knock out Dr. Death. Yeah, the heck he did. The heck he did. He's another one. That's like New Jack from last week. He was like, what I'm gonna do to that boy, you gonna talk about for 10 years. He told you. He was like, when I knock out Dr. Death, am I gonna get heat for this? Yeah, I told him no. And he did get heat for it. He had to sit at home for 4 months. And then when you call him up, you say, oh, we want you to verse Butterbean, who's built like a freaking fridge. So what do you think about that part of this whole story with Butterbean being introduced as basically a punishment to Bart Gunn?
Right. So that whole thing just shows and tells you that these people are slime balls and they don't give a damn. Because he did what he had his job. He did his job. He told y'all, like, I don't want no heat. And y'all still didn't follow what he did. And you punish me, basically. You give me the money, but I still got to sit home. And now you're going to send me for training. And basically, let me get my ass kicked.
You're going to reprogram me where me as a brawler with no training went in there and knocked out all these guys that were bigger than me, these guys with athletic backgrounds, with real fighting backgrounds, wrestling backgrounds, all Americans. They don't give that stuff around like JR said. And he just knocked him out because he was just like a brawler and a guy that was just tough. And you reprogrammed him into this boxer type where he wasn't fighting like he was in the Brawl for All. Like everybody said when the Talking Heads was talking, Godfather all the way down to Jim Cornette, he's like, that wasn't the same guy. Like that wasn't the same guy that was out there. And you saw it in the first few seconds. In the first few seconds, Butterbean make him did a full spin. All of his arms was like this.
And it was like, he was like, please don't let him do this whole let him go back into the referee was like, oh God, he let him go back. He was like, I'm gonna kill him. And Butterbean got it from his kids. He's like, oh, Dad, you killed him. He's like, no, he's all right. Like, no, you did that to him. Like, you've seen his neck spin.
He almost died. It was almost a sad thing. And it was funny enough. He did the same thing to Godfather pretty much. He knocked
Godfather was high.
Yeah.
He had no business being there.
Godfather was the real MVP of this episode. Him talking about
he kept going in there high.
He was like, I used to be a bouncer in the club, and every pimp at the bar, I used to tell them, I'm going to smack the hell out of you once I get behind this bar. He come behind the bar, and I smack him, he fall off the bar stool. I was like, yo, Godfather, that's hilarious. And then you went on TV and played a pimp. That's hilarious. That's... And then his whole gimmick was talking about smoking weed and selling pussy. Absolutely. That's Godfather for you.
Yep.
OG, triple OG. So who is one of your other favorites out of like the talking heads on this episode?
Besides the Godfather, Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette is the one that wins this for me. Like, he tried to tell him, like, dude, what are you doing? He tried to stop this. He tried to tell him, like, this was not what needs to be done. He tried to be the man of reason and level head of this whole thing, but homeboy was just like not trying to hear it. I guess he had a point to prove and wanted to make everything he wanted to make Bradshaw look bad, and he didn't care what anyone said.
He was after that petty gripe and that petty vendetta, but my main thing was, go ahead.
When he watches it back and he's laughing at Bradshaw, he's getting his it's so sad. Like, he's just dying of laughter. Like, he still gets a good feeling from seeing this.
And when he's watching the earlier stuff, he was like, I don't know about you guys, but this is good TV, bro.
No, it's not.
Like, what?
You just like the old head. You didn't get it.
Yeah, like, you just don't learn. Like, he hasn't learned anything. That's why I said this is one of the rare times where I agreed with Jim Cornette. But my negative, my number one negative of this whole episode is that in a lot of ways it mirrored the season 1, the weakest episode to me, which was the Montreal Screwjob, where it didn't add a real lot to the overall story of the Brawl for All, where you were learning a whole lot. Yeah. And number 2, it became Cornette versus Russo.
Again.
Again. Anytime they contribute to anything together, it becomes Cornette versus Russo. Mm-hmm. And especially if they're in front of the camera, it's always going to become Cornette versus Russo, and it's just agony. This is why I said I take Cornette's side this time, because it's like,
Come on now. This was a show about them two basically like trying to stop each other at the end of the day. But
they're in a forever war with each other.
they have vendettas against each other forever to the day they die.
Yeah, Cornette said that he hopes to outlive Vince Russo so he can piss on his grave in that Montreal Screwjob episode. He legit said that, and he told his wife that she is written out of the will if she
If he
doesn't.
doesn't let him do it, yep.
Yeah, if she doesn't will
He
his.
told him in this episode he's waiting for him with a baseball bat.
It's crazy. It's crazy. These two old men in their 60s, almost in their 60s.
Is Bart Gunn Billy Gunn's brother?
No, he's not. He's not their biological brother. They were just tag team partners who used to ride on the horses. I love they showed those little
videos. They got broken up too, yo.
Yeah, like he got lost in the shuffle. Like, and it was funny because Billy didn't even have a successful singles career. Like, he got in a singles career, it bombed, and then they put him with at the time, the real Double J, Jesse James, who eventually becomes the Road Dogg, and they become the New Age Outlaws. He becomes Mr. Ass, the badass Billy Gunn. So, it all comes together. They all come together to become one of the greatest tag teams in WWF history. While Bart Gunn wins the Brawl for All, sits at home for 4 months, goes home, sits at home for 4 months, then gets knocked out by Butterbean. Then he eventually gets fired from the WWE, and his wrestling career is pretty much over. When you look at the grand scheme of things, the Smoking Guns, they won the tag team titles 3 times, and they're pretty much not remembered in Billy Gunn's career because...
At all.
Yeah. And Bart Gunn kind of, contributed to all of that, contributed to one of the more popular tag teams of the new generation era in WWE, which they don't really try to highlight at all anyway, because it's all about the Attitude Era.
Yep.
Yeah, it's all about the Attitude Era. And business was down during that era as well.
Correct.
So what would you say where this falls in place in comparison to the rest of the episodes in season 2?
Could have dealt without it. Could have not had it at all. Unfortunately, I wasn't really enthused with this episode, to be honest. I was like, that's why you asked me, did I have notes? I was like, no, I don't need no notes. This one wasn't really necessary. Like, I'm sad I gave it my time and, DVR space.
Well, and it was kind of a weak story because they kind of had to go.
They had nothing.
They had to go into different things. Like, they had to highlight Godfather. They had to highlight Bart Gunn and how it was for him after his career. Then they had even Darren Drozdov, who was a part of it, and they talked about his injury, which really wasn't related to the whole story. It was kind of. But
I did like that he got to talk about that. Yes.
Yeah, I did like that. Yeah, exactly. That was like a very unique story that was just an accident in wrestling, and that's why I was like when I saw Draws, I was like, oh, I have to have D'Lo on this episode so they can actually talk about the injury, because that's a little tidbit. That's a side note from the Brawl for All, but the overall story for the Brawl for All, I felt like you're 100% on point. Like, I don't think it was that much needed for a full episode of Dark Side of the Ring, because there wasn't much to talk about there, and it's kind of like it's one of the worst ideas in wrestling history. That's how
right. I don't even think it was worth the behind the mat type of thing. It was really nothing new per se. It was they could have skipped on to the next one, to be honest.
I do agree though that Draws got screwed. Draws should have probably beat Bradshaw in that fight. Bradshaw shouldn't even have made it that far. That's all I gotta say.
Russo was really upset when he won too. He was like,
"Oh my god!" Russo was too happy with seeing Bradshaw potentially get CTE with those shots that he got from Bart Gunn. Like, he was just way too. And then at the end, he tried to backtrack and about CTE. Maybe it was a bad idea, but bro. At the time, I just wanted to shut him up, bro. I just wanted to shut him up. Like, that's all he kept pointing to. Like, he more blamed the Brawl for All on Bradshaw than himself.
Yep. Exactly.
That's Vince Russo in a nutshell. This man that has found God. He has not found the ability to take responsibility for his actions.
Correct. Exactly. Good job, sir.
So I think we both agree this was the weakest episode so far of
Just far.
season 2. All right.
Yeah. This goes with the, like you said, the Montreal Screwjob
from the first season. Yeah, that was the
These two
weakest
episodes were not necessary.
That was the weakest episode of season 1. This has been the weakest episode of season 2. But season 2 is about to heat up because next week we got the true story, the behind-the-scenes story of what happened when Jimmy Superfly Snuka, one of the most famous WWF legends, apparently, reportedly, allegedly murdered his girlfriend. WWE Hall of Famer Jimmy Superfly.
Oh wow, he's like
Snuka.
Carol Baskin.
Yes.
Disappeared.
Yep. He apparently they talk about in the trailer, you know, the girlfriend had like the finger marks around her throat, and apparently he's a murderer. This has caused a lot of controversy in the last couple of years when the story came out. I believe this was back in 2017, 2018, after his death, and everything. It's kind of a Chasing Neverland type of situation where this type of stuff creeps up on a person, post harmonious. But what's your overall thoughts on Jimmy Superfly Snuka before you see this episode? And then I'll ask you next week, what's your thoughts on Jimmy Superfly after learning everything?
Well, now I see he's a legend. He's the guy that I remember doing the big jump off of the top rope back in the 80s. Being like one of the Samoan guys, like in wrestling, being a guy of color. So that's what I remember of him. It's looking like it might change after I see this episode. I don't know. We gonna see.
We will see next week.
I might have to call him like Carol Baskin now, yo. We don't know. Because Carol Baskin did it.
She did. She did. Definitely. So post your comments down below. Tell us what you think about the Brawl for All episode. Do you agree with us? Do you think it's one of the weaker episodes? Or did you enjoy it? And tell us what you enjoyed about this episode. Push that like button if you enjoyed this video. And push the subscribe button. Push the bell to stay notified. We appreciate all our great subscribers. Just over 400 subscribers on the True Heel Heat YouTube channel. So we need a little bit more to push to that 500 mark. And you can join along with us. So like, share, subscribe once again for more True Heel Heat. This has been the princess of all the True Heels, the bottle girl of the True Heels herself. She's looking very professional today, Miss Krssi.
Thank you.
It is me, your True Heel Phenom SP3. This has been the Dark Side of the Ring, episode 4, season 2, Brawl for All. Signing off until next time.
Laters.